and girls, it's Miss Davis here. I have another developing talker book for us to read together. This is going to be a 3-part video. Each video will be a different lesson or day, and I hope you enjoy. We're going to read this book. The title is Muncha, 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 written by Candace Fleming and illustrated by Brian Crass. This is one of my favorite developing talkers books, especially because we have bunnies in our class and it's so special to us. We love all kind of books, but we especially love books that are narratives like this one. They tell such entertaining stories. Before we start, we're going to learn 2 new vocabulary words. This word is furious. Repeat. When you are furious, you are very mad. Oh no, something has upset this girl and now she is furious. Imagine you saw someone being mean to your friend. Show me a mad face and say, I'm furious. Let's do it together. I'm furious. Good. All right, our next word is nibble. Repeat. When you nibble food, you bite off a small piece as you eat it. This girl is nibbling her corn on the cob. Let's pretend we're taking small bites from our corn on the cob and say, I'm nibbling my corn on the cob. Let's do it together. I'm nibbling my corn on the cob. And take little bites. Good. All right, now we're going to start our story. Boys and girls, there's a guided question I want you to think about as we read. As we read, I want you to think, how does Mr. McGreeley try to solve his problem? So at the end of the book, we're going to talk about how Mr. McGreeley tried to solve his problem. Muncha, muncha, muncha. For years, Mr. McGreeley dreamed of planting a garden. He dreamed of getting his hands dirty and of growing yummy vegetables and gobbling them all up. This spring, said Mr. McGreeley, this spring, by golly, I'm going to plant a garden. So he hoed, and he sowed, and he watched his garden grow. Lettuce, carrots, peas, tomatoes, yummy, 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 said Mr. McGreeley. I'll soon fill my tummy with crisp vegetables. But who else is watching the garden grow? Why do you think they are watching him in the garden? That's a good guess. They also like vegetables. Very good. But one night when the sun went down and the moon came up, 3 hungry bunnies appeared. Tippy, 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 pat. Muncha, muncha, muncha. The next morning, when Mr. McGreeley saw his gnawed sprouts, he was angry. So he built a small wire fence all around his vegetable garden. There, he declared, no bunny can get in my garden now. Let's make a prediction. Do you think this small fence will keep the bunnies out of the garden? What do you think? Do you think this small fence will keep the bunnies out of his garden? That's a good guess. Let's read to find out. The sun went down and the moon came up, and tippy, 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 pat. Spring hurtled, dash, dash, muncha, muncha, muncha. So let's check whether our prediction was correct or if we need to change our thinking. Did the little fence keep the bunnies out of the garden? Thanos is drinking. Did the little fence keep the bunnies out of the garden? No, it did not work. So we need to change our thinking. If we said yes, if we said no, then we were correct in our prediction. The next morning when Mr. McGreeley saw his nibbled leaves and gnawed sprouts, he was really angry. So he built a tall wooden wall behind the small wire fence all around his vegetable garden. Humph, he huffed. Those flop ears will never get over it. No bunny can get into my garden now. When you nibble food, you bite off a small piece as you eat it. The bunnies nibbled Mr. McGreeley's leaves. And the sun went down and the moon came up, and tippy, 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 pat, dig, scrabble, scratch, scratch, scratch. Spring hurtled, dash, 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 muncha, muncha, muncha. The next morning when Mr. McGreely saw his chewed stems and his nibbled leaves and gnawed sprouts, he was really, really angry. So he made a deep, wet trench outside the tall wooden wall behind the small wire fence all around his vegetable garden. Ha! He snorted. Those pufftails can't get under it. They can't get over it. No bunny can get into my garden now. And the sun went down and the moon came up, and tippy, 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 pat. Dive, paddle, splash, splash. Splash, dig, scrabble, scratch, scratch, scratch. Spring, hurdle, dash, dash, dash. Muncha, muncha, muncha. The next morning when Mr. McGreely saw his chomped blossoms, his chewed stems, his nibbled leaves, and his gnawed sprouts, he was furious. Mr. McGreely feels furious because the bunnies keep eating the vegetables from his garden. When you are furious, you are very mad. Let's pretend we're Mr. McGreely. Show me a mad face and say, I'm furious. Let's do it together. I'm furious. Ooh, good mad face. Good furious face. So he hammered and he blocked and he sawed and he stalked and he drilled and he filled and he trapped and he locked and he built a huge, enormous thing for the deep, wet trench outside the tall wooden wall behind the small wired fence all around his vegetable garden. I've outsmarted those twitch whiskers for sure, he exclaimed. They can't get through it, they can't get under it, and they can't get over it. No bunny, no way, no how can get into my vegetable garden now. And the sun went down and the moon came up, and tippy, 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 stop. 3 hungry bunnies looked and smelled and touched the huge, enormous thing before them, and tippy, 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 pat, the bunnies hopped away. The next morning when Mr. McGreely saw his untouched vegetables, he was happy. Muncha, muncha, muncha. Uh-oh, sorry, boys and girls, I skipped a page. I beat the bunnies, he whooped, and he did a jiggity-jig victory dance. Then he climbed over, jumped across, squeezed between, and crawled under until he reached his vegetable garden. Ah, sighed Mr. McGreely at last, smacking his lips. He picked and he pulled up lettuce, carrots, peas, tomatoes, and with his basket overflowing, he reached inside for something very yummy. Muncha, muncha, muncha. Who's in his basket? Oh, and he decided to share. So as we were reading, boys and girls, we were thinking about how Mr. McGreely tried to solve his problem. How did Mr. McGreely try to solve his problem in this book? So, number 1, he tried to solve it by building a small wire fence. Did that work? No. After that didn't work, he built a tall wooden fence. And that didn't work. And then he built a big, wet trench all around. And then, when that didn't work, he built a big, tall wall with the lock and the wire all around the top. But somehow the bunnies followed him in and still got the vegetables. That's right. But then in the end, he decided to share. Boys and girls, you had to listen and remember to answer that guided question. When you listen and remember, you pay special attention to important things the author says and try to remember them. All right, we're going to review our 2 words and then we'll be done for today. This word is nibble. Repeat. When you nibble food, you bite off a small piece as you eat it. This corn is perfect to nibble on. Would ice cream be a good food to nibble on? Why not? Yeah, because it would probably hurt your teeth. That's right. This word is furious. Repeat. When you are furious, you are very mad. Have you ever felt furious like this girl? What made you feel that way? What made you feel furious? I know my kids get furious at each other when they won't listen. Mackenzie won't listen to Bryce. Bryce won't listen to Mackenzie. They get furious and start to fight. All right, boys and girls, I love you. Bye.